Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Cocktail Hour. I am Meg.
And I'm Nikki, and if you're a wedding vendor headed to work this weekend, may the odds ever be in your favor, and if you happen to have a double or triple header, this episode is for you.
Yeah. Today we have a bride who takes Show Me the Money. I really hesitated. I was going to try to do the Jerry Maguire, but I decided that I've had enough hurt on social media for a lifetime these last few weeks. But anyways, a bride who takes Show Me the Money to a new level, and a wedding vendor who wants to shout something from top of a mountain. And I agree, but I think I agree for different reasons than everybody else. So we're going to go through that. But before we do that, let's call out that we skipped a week.
We didn't actually skip a week. We recorded twice last week. And low-key, I'm kind of happy that the videos aren't out because I was really struggling through them. I couldn't breathe.
That's true.
I wanted to die. Literally, I was so congested and sounded horrible. And to be honest, it was really miserable trying to
get
talk.
through it. Yeah.
And so, not that I'm not happy that we didn't put out an episode last week, but
I didn't even think about that. I'm
happy to be feeling better today and to be able to be like, okay, now I can breathe and actually talk and get through a sentence without gasping for air and wanting to die. So
yeah. And I will say the recording was due to audio issues. Just know and if you're creative listening to this, you probably already know this, that things can be perfect and then all of a sudden we were just having the most insane audio issues. We would test it. I was listening to the audio and it was perfect. And then the next day we're like, great, let's record again. And it was fucked the next day. And I was like, okay, this is my 13th reason. I'm trying to have a successful podcast and we bought all the equipment. We've done the setup and now the audio cannot work. So we are here. So we might have a little chunkier of an episode. And so we have a little bit more to update everybody on. But if you want to skip that and just get to the stories, well, you can fuck off because...
You can fast forward. We'll put it in the show notes, where the stories are. I used to do that too with, my mom and I's podcast. I'd be okay, I understand people aren't here to, hear us recap our lives, but also, cool.
Also, if you're not, though, what? We are the cherry on top of this sundae.
No, literally. You're actually missing out if you're being a little bitch.
I think you're lucky we even talk about anything besides ourselves because I actually think we could rock through a whole 60 minutes just shooting the shit on life.
Just recapping, you guys. So in the spirit of a good recap, we'll kind of go over, since we did miss last week, a little bit of what happened in the last couple of weeks and try not to bore you too much with our beautiful lives and what they look like.
I have some of the most crazy notes for my update.
Okay, wait, go first then, because I didn't even read your notes, and I
some of them aren't even an update of my life. They're things that I've seen that I
the last one is a little scary. Why would you? I'm a little nervous now that I'm looking at this. I'm like,
okay, I need everyone to just hear the sentence and then I will elaborate. These were just items that I came across this week that I wanted to talk about. So the sentence goes as follows. Pocahontas, which is definitely not spelled right. Pocahontas comment, ovaries generations, and new chapel song. That's the sentence. So first things first, Pocahontas. I saw a nice Pocahontas edit, Colors of the Wind. And I pulled up the comments. I don't know why, but that's where I'm entertained most of the time.
I love the comments.
Social media.
Yeah, you have to look at the comments.
So some lady who I went to look at her Instagram and she had to have been 50, 60 years old. She comments and she goes, even after 20 years or 30 years, whatever the time frame is, I still cannot believe that she chose John Smith over Kokoman. And I went, baby girl, this is a cartoon.
But low-key facts.
I didn't comment back, but I remember looking at it and I was like, what?
Does this woman not realize this is a fictional story?
Yeah, I was like, this isn't actually...
Is it
I believe there was a Pocahontas. I do believe she was also 10 years old. So it's definitely an exaggeration of the story. But I just sat there and I went, this has been on her soul for decades that this happened.
That is so funny.
And I could not stop laughing. So next one is, okay, I read that you obviously came from your mom, right? And your mom came from your grandma. So I read that the ovaries that you have or something along the
Yeah, they're like generations old.
Generations old. Like they were in your grandmother. And how...
Yeah, but they weren't formed.
I don't know the science behind this. I'm not Bill Nye. But essentially they say that like pieces of you, yes, they were in your grandmother. And sometimes even if you maybe didn't have a relationship with your grandmother, or let's say didn't have a relationship with your mom, that like trauma and things like that can be passed down just genetically. And I went, this shit's crazy. And I got to thinking about my grandmother and my mother.
And you're like, oh, this is
right? This makes so much sense. But not even like bad things necessarily. But for instance, I don't have a super close relationship with my grandmother. Like I've just never been a big family person, which maybe is an insane thing to admit, but I just never have been. And I think about it though, my grandmother was a Navy nurse, and in the past year I have found a bunch of
her film scans
or her film negatives from all over the world. The most beautiful film photographs. Like she is a traveler, just true and true. And I really don't think that she likes my mom all that much, because my mom came along and then kind of stopped that adventure.
Ruined her life.
Really stopped that adventure. My mom had me very young, and my mom has always been a soul of adventure. Like she loves to go places. When she was younger and she had all of us kids, like I definitely think she was like, fuck you guys. Like I'm trying to be out and live my life and like go see
Good
things.
For her.
I agree. And as she's gotten older, that's one of the things that she does all the time. And she encourages me all the time.
Like travel and adventure.
Oh, yeah. One day I came to her and I said, hey, my boyfriend and I are breaking up. I really want to move across the country. And she said, bet. She said, I'll help you. We packed up my Ford Focus and we drove together. Like she's always an advocate.
Where'd you move to?
Oh, North Carolina, Charlotte.
For how long?
For 1 week.
No, you didn't.
You don't know this fucking story. Long story short, I was working at a large company and they were a big base in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I said, look, I got to get the fuck out of here. Can I transfer over there? They said, well, no, but you can do an internal interview. And so I interviewed. I got the job. I drove out there with my mom and my cat and in my two-door Ford Focus. Went to IKEA. I had pretty good credit back then because I was young, before you go anything crazy. So I had like an $8,000 credit card. Went to every store, stocked that apartment, like all new furniture, stocked the fridge, whatever. And I get there. Here's the issue. I did not go out there to see my apartment before I moved in. I had and I'm not that old, a $500 apartment.
Yikes.
Because I was nervous to get one more expensive. What if I can't afford it? So I just signed a lease virtually for a $500 apartment. And then you get there. And I go,
did the photos look okay at least?
Oh, they look beautiful. Okay. They had a great real estate photographer. And I get there and I go, oh, I'm nervous. And the nervousness came from not all men, but there were men who would sit on like outside the apartment complex, like huge groups of them, and they would just watch people go in and out of their apartment. And your apartment, it's not like in Minnesota where it's, a building, you go into the building, you go up to your apartment.
It's a walk up.
It's a walk up. Your door, and I'm on the first level, your door is right there. Someone could just kick it in, you'd be there. My window, you could just knock on my window. And it was not fun. Every single night I was really, really scared. I was very young, So
how old were you?
24. So like first time alone, no one within 20 hours of me or so that I knew. It was really scary. So anyways, I had a full week to set up. My mom was there for a few days. Once my mom left, I couldn't sleep at night. I just was crying all the time. And I was like, this is not worth it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get over this. So I had met a mom and her kiddos who lived above me. And it just hit me one day. I was like, I cannot do this. I went up to her apartment. I gave her the keys to my apartment. And I said, look, there is, I don't know, $8,000 worth of stuff down there. It is yours. Take everything you want.
Why wouldn't you just rent a U-Haul and bring stuff back home?
Honestly, because I was probably going to have to live with my parents anyway. And I was just like, I am fight or flight to the nth degree. I'm like, nope.
So you flighted.
Bye. I can't do this.
You flew.
Yeah, flew. I gave her all my stuff. I told her, I'll let the leasing office know that you have the key, but that I want to give you time to get these items out. Like new dish, everything. So she looked at me and she was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, no, take it. So anyways, I go to the leasing office. I let them know. I pay the early termination fee. I jump in my Subaru. or my Subaru, my Ford Focus.
Drove back.
With my cat, and I drove back. And my mom was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, she's like, you couldn't give it more than a week? So anyways, but yeah, I just thought that generational thing was kind of funny because Adam and I'm not saying we're fighting about it, but we're kind of button heads a little bit about this road trip that I want to go on. And I was sitting here in this exact seat yesterday, journaling, as stupid as that sounds. And I started crying because I am scared. I am scared to do this 2-week road trip by myself, not like a debilitating, I can stop at a hotel if I want. I can do whatever I want, but I am scared. I sometimes in the moment when I'm 20 hours from home, I'm just like, God, I just want to be home. But I am more scared not to. I am more scared to not do the things that I want to do and to see the things I want to see. Like, I don't want to be laying on my deathbed and be like, I wish I did that one trip.
Oh my God, I saw a video from this movie with Tom Hanks, and I don't know who the woman actress is, but it's this excerpt of the movie, and it was a reel on TikTok, and it was her 50th birthday, and she was like, you know, I think the movie came out like last year, but she was talking about how, I'll send you the clip, and I don't know if anybody's seen this on the Instagram, but she was talking about how you think about it one day and you're just like, you're in your 20s and you're thinking about all these things that you want to do, and like that time goes so slow and that you have all of this time to do all of this shit. And then she starts crying and she's like, and then one day you're 50 and you look back and you haven't, you know, walked in Paris in spring, and you haven't traveled to Italy and done the things that you want to do, and you haven't gone to, you know, this coast and done all of these things, and then where's all of your time?
Yep. And there will never be a right time. And it's just, for instance, this chunk of time that I have before busy season, it's not going to be the best weather. Like, it would be smarter to go in July or something. Like, I don't know. There's always a reason I can tell myself, like, oh, you'll do it later, you'll do it. And I was like, you know what? I have almost an entire free month before busy season.
Hell yeah,
I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to go. Like, if Adam can make the time, because he obviously has a corporate job, so PTO is not as easy to come by as what the fuck, I'm doing whatever I want to do. But I told them, like, I'll give you my itinerary, and if you want to fly out and we can spend a couple days together, if you can't get the time off. Of course I would want him there with me, but I just sat there. And so yeah, it just made me think about my mom and my grandmother, like two people whom I may have not been thick as thieves with growing up, but I am very much a product of their mentality around like traveling and experiences and stuff like that. So that was, and then the new Chapel song,
what is it
Giver?
called?
I think it's called The Giver. Essentially, it's like twang, it's country. And I saw a video that said, like, just wait for the country, you know, people to start loving, not hating on the song, but loving it. And then realize what it's about. And I just sat there and I was like, we need to get to the point where we can just appreciate music without it, I don't know, like, without it having to represent everything in life.
It's like tattoos. Like, people who are like, oh, all of my tattoos have meaning. Like, every single thing on my body has meaning. And then you meet somebody who's like, I got a fucking butthole of a cat tattooed on my belly button. You know what I mean? Like, there are just, people are so different. And to some people, it's like, okay, it's not a huge deal. And to other people, they just read so much into things. And it's like, I love a meaningful tattoo, but do I have all meaningful tattoos? No. So why the fuck do you care about a song?
Yeah. Like, if it's, what does Chris Rock say? If the beat is right, I will dance all night. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If it's a bop, I don't quite care. And I just sit there and I think about all the music. I am not a religious person, but Our God is an Awesome God comes on.
Our God is an awesome God, he reigns.
No, I fucking love that song. Because why? It's a bop. So I'm just like, or you put on some Veggie Tales. Yes.
Okay, that I'm not on board with. But okay, Our God is an Awesome God. Oh,
it's so good.
A bop.
So it's just like, get over it. Okay. Those were my random comments. So my update from this last week or two. Number one, I had a dream and I didn't know it was a dream.
That's what I was talking about.
Oh, the dream. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I spoke with Adam about this. So I had a dream, and in the dream I didn't know. Like, sometimes you just kind of know, you're like, this is so unrealistic.
Yeah.
I didn't know. And the dream was that I woke up, I looked to my left, because I don't know, I always go to look at Adam, and it was my ex. And I immediately, there was a pit in my stomach, and I was like, what have I done? What have I done? Not that I slept with that person, but that, like, My life was back with that person. I think it's maybe because like we had talked about mother-in-laws and like
we talked about it twice in a row and the episodes never aired of like what like a lot of what we talked about. So I think that stuff was just like,
yeah, it was just on my mind. But I remember in the dream thinking like, what have I done? I hate this person. And within, I would say, an hour of waking up in the dream, I looked at him and I was like, I don't know what's happening, but like, I don't love you. I don't want to be with you. And he was like, you're doing this again? And I was like, how many times has this happened? I was like, I don't love you. Like in my head, I'm thinking, where is Adam? What happened with Adam and I to the point that I am now with my ex? I literally was having an absolute panic attack in the stream. And then I wake up and Adam's there. I was like, dear God. And then I literally wake him up. I'm like, I have to tell you what happened. But it was just the scariest thing ever. And then it got me thinking about people who don't leave relationships they don't want to be in. And that's just their daily life of waking up and being like, oh, you again. So just leave if you want to leave. Just, yeah, that was my dream about my ex thing.
Pack it up.
Okay. Actual updates. Puppy yoga, rough start rescue here in Minnesota. We did puppy yoga at Carpe Diem. I did just post a reel about it if you want to go check it out. Rough Start Rescue alone has 550 animals up for adoption. So you think about that, then you think about all the rescues in Minnesota, then you think about all the rescues in the United States. That is an insane amount of pets.
And that doesn't include shelter animals.
Yeah. So, you know, adopt, don't shop. I know everybody loves like a cute little breedy dog. Yeah.
No, but just like, adopt a dog, guys. Just do it.
Other updates. I was contacted by Coors/Miller and like Miller Lite beer, and they are putting one of my photographs in a commercial for March Madness. So I didn't know when March Madness was, but but I will absolutely be keeping an eye out for that. So that's super exciting. I'm excited to see it. Christopher Walken is like the voiceover. Narrator. It's a montage of, I think, just like POV Miller Lite shots from, you know, drinkers of Miller. So really excited about that. That's my first little partnership. What else? Oh, Fujifilm has reached out to me. So if you didn't already know about the Canon issue that I'm running into, long story short, bought a camera on Amazon. Don't ever do that. Just don't buy your equipment from Amazon. Apparently, I did not know this. And this is literally the third time now that I'm talking about this, and we didn't get to air the other two. But don't buy your camera gear off Amazon. Just go straight to the seller. No, it's not a Canon thing, but I do feel like it could be a lot more regulated. But Fujifilm came across my video, which is funny because it didn't even like go insanely viral or anything. But someone sent it to a big boy over at Fujifilm. So they're sending me a little kit and I'm super excited. And the guy was really nice. He was like, we just want to make sure that you can get back out there and start creating. And I was like,
that's nice.
That is super fucking nice. Canon can suck it. Again, I know this isn't necessarily a Canon issue, but
they should have been more helpful on the issue. The comments on the video that they had left were like, this is not a Canon issue.
Yeah. I was sitting there like, what Gen Z motherfucker is leaving this comment from Canon, putting things in asterisks? And I was like, oh, you want to have some attitude with me? Because I'll have some attitude with you. These companies, and again, all across the board, these companies who make millions and billions of dollars taking advantage of consumers like us, small businesses who are just trying to get by. And I sit there and I go, you are so incredibly unhelpful. I'm trying to give you $5,000 for a camera and I get completely fucked. The update on that camera is Amazon overrid kind of the third-party seller, approved the return. They received it 12 days ago. And I was told by Amazon that I should have gotten a refund, I don't know, like 6 days or something after the return, something like that. I have messaged the seller multiple times. They're like, nope, this is not something we handle. This is not something we handle. And I'm like, you sold it. You are responsible for the refund. And they were like, nope, go back to Amazon. Damn. It's been a constant back and forth. So now not only do I not have the camera, I don't have my money back. And I'm just like, Fujifilm's looking better and better to your girl right now. But if you didn't already know, go watch our last podcast episode. But essentially what can happen is if you buy gear off Amazon, you can get something from a third-party seller. Even if it says shipped and sold by Amazon 1 minute, that can change the next minute. And I was sent a gray market camera. So something that shouldn't have been sold, there's no warranty on it, cannot be fixed, whatever. So that's just some BS. Also, I know this is getting long, but I have to call them out, those men in my comments. It's always the men, the male photographers who are commenting on the video about the camera issue, just saying like, well, clearly you're not a real photographer because you bought a piece of equipment off Amazon, or like, this is what you get, idiot, la la. And then they're having conversations with each other, talking about how stupid I am in the comments. And I'm kind of like,
let them.
Okay, Mel Robbins over here. But I'm just like, and then I go to their feed because I'm like, man, their work must be like, this must be some stunning shit. And I'm like, no, you're taking pictures of leaves with your Rebel.
Yeah, it's always the people who take pictures of the leaves who have time to leave comments.
Yeah.
Like, people who are actually working don't have time for that.
No, seriously. And I'm not meant for social media. I don't like criticism. I will snap back at you. I need to work on it, but
It's okay.
It's okay. Other than that I feel like is most of my update. What about you? I know that was so fucking long.
Mine will be a lot shorter. I do want to shout out Tofty Trails because I went up north, like actually up north for the first time ever last weekend. Craig and I just decided on a whim to take a day trip. So if you are somebody who lives in Minnesota, like, a staycation is only a 4-hour drive away. Like, you can just drive up north and do beautiful, fun shit, which is what we did. So shout out to at Tofty Trails up in Tofty, Minnesota. I was like, I don't know how the fuck to say that. Toft. Craig's like, no, it's Tofty. And I was like, okay.
Adam's favorite place is the North Shore, by the way.
Really?
His favorite place. Every time I get like a itch to go on a trip, he's like, let's go to the North Shore. And I'm like, I would like to drive.
You're like, yeah, that's
80
not
hours
what I
round
mean.
trip.
My itch is way further up my ass than that. Like, we're not
it's
driving.
Coming out of my
literally, like, I'm not driving to the North Shore,
I was
loser.
Like, that's like for a wedding quick and then come right back. I will say though, he loves that Bluefin Bay place up there, and he would go there with his ex-girlfriend. So every time he brings it up, I'm like, I bet you want to go back there. And he's like, I'm
so funny.
Trying to be nice to you, but you're making it real hard.
No, you guys should go to Tofty Trails. It was so cool. It was like just a cute like solo cabin that you see on Instagram and very just like North Shore-esque.
Yeah.
And we brought the dog, so it was really fun. I also had an elopement on this Friday. Yeah, Friday, which was so sweet. Shout out to Julie and Jess. Also my first like official LGBTQ wedding. I've shot other same-sex weddings, or not weddings, but like shoots and stuff. And so, yeah, it was really sweet. They eloped at the conservatory, and it was just like beautiful.
Were you guys inside and outside, or just outside?
Inside. They had the ceremony in the sunken garden. Like, the conservatory literally shut the whole thing down. And I think they reserve it for a couple of hours because there was another ceremony at like 6:30 or something. So theirs was at like 4. But it was really cool. Like, they clear everybody out of there. And then, so we shot outside beforehand, and then we had the ceremony inside, and it was really sweet. And then last thing, I have to head to Chaska after this because #studio opening. The Social Suite, if you're not up to date, we're opening a studio in Chaska, me and 2 of my business partner girly friends, photo content studio. And I got to show Craig that actually the day before we left to go up north. And I think a lot of the times with Craig, at least, he's like very skeptical about things. He's very encouraging, but he's like, okay. But then when I showed him the Social Suite, he was like,
yeah.
And it made me 10 times more excited because he was like, this is fucking sick. Like, this is going to be amazing. This is like the light bulb kind of clicked in his head where he was like, okay, I could understand what you were saying before, but now that I see it, it's like the pieces of the puzzle are finally falling together. So we went to IKEA this weekend and just got some like basic necessities for the space. We have a launch party happening on April 8th, which I'm excited about, which will just be like an open house style thing. But yeah, I'm so excited. We've got 2 backdrops that Grace's husband and his dad built.
Ooh.
Yeah, like one moving backdrop and one like really cool arch, like just cool stuff that I'm like, this is what I've, wanted for the longest time, is like building a studio, having somewhere to go shoot and not having to like look at I mean, obviously I'll still have to look at a calendar, but being like having a home base basically to like shoot in and not have to worry and freak out and like, where do I go or what coffee shops do I utilize that my clients might hate someday, I don't know where to do these things within the Twin Cities, and spaces are limited. Like, I know we're shooting at the MIA coming up here, and it's like that also takes a permit and takes, time, and it's not the easiest to shoot. And like, there are these things that come about when you are a photographer in Minnesota in the winter that makes it really difficult to try to like find a space that you know and love. And I will say, I do want to shout out Abide Studios in Northeast. Like, that was my home base for the longest time, and I loved it. It's an amazing studio, and if it is more convenient to people in this area, like, love shooting there. But I am super excited to have like a space to be and to like have my stuff stored and to not have to like worry about, and to know how it shoots, and to just really learn and be able to play around with lighting and test stuff in there. So
there will be a certain comfort level, that's for sure, of, like you said, not only shooting there regularly, but that's where you're working and like you can invite clients there versus traipsing all over the Twin Cities.
Totally. It'll just make it a lot easier. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are my updates. I think that's it.
That's fair. One other thing that I forgot to talk about is we got a YouTube comment that I think needs to be discussed.
Is this the first comment again? I feel like because we've read it so many times, I'm like, wait.
Yeah, no, to us, this is the 10th time we've talked about this, but for y'all, it's the first. So we got a comment on our very first podcast episode on YouTube, and comments sometimes can be not so nice. This one really solidified why we do this. So at Aaron Analog 1 says, finally, a wedding photography podcast talking about buttholes. Love the pod. I've been shooting for 20 years and I watch a lot of YouTube. You're right. There isn't really a whole lot of this kind of banter on here. Subscribed. And we really appreciate that. And I think a lot of you, I mean, at least if you listened to the first episode, know why we're here. We were on a long ass road trip. We were trying to find a podcast that entertained us, and we could not find one. It just, everything, I just think that there's something for everybody, but there wasn't for Nikki and I, and we just decided that we would create that. And I also feel like that's where a lot of art and creativity comes from, is if you are not finding something that feeds your soul or something that you enjoy, then you might kind of be the one that needs to take that on and go create that yourself.
The space. Yeah. So thanks, Aaron Analog 1.
Yeah.
I subscribe to your channel. I can't pull the YouTube back up right now. I feel like I literally am having deja vu because we did do this twice already. And I'm like, do I say the same exact monologue that I did last time? Or I'm like, thanks, Aaron Analog 1. I subscribe to your channel.
Also, you forgot to wear green today.
I totally forgot.
I didn't even think about this. I slept in this.
I honestly didn't even think about it until you just said that.
When I rolled up, I was like, oh, okay. Well.
Okay, today's St. Patrick's Day. This episode will be released on Friday, but happy St. Patrick's Day. Can you do your best Irish accent?
No, I can't. Which, I love an accent. I love a Southern accent. But I cannot do an Irish or Scottish at all.
Really?
Can you? Do it. Wait, have you ever seen that video where they ask her to do a Jamaican accent? She's like, bah, 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 whatever. I need to find the video so I can clip it because it's so fucking funny.
That is so funny. I can't now. Top of the morning to ya. I can't. I don't even know what the fuck that is. Anyway, let's hop into these stories.
Let's hop in.
All right. This story is titled, Bridezilla wanted a refund from all vendors months after the wedding actually happened. Okay. I'm currently finishing up a commission of a hand painting wedding sign for a friend of a friend. So far, the bride has been super lovely and very understanding of some issues that we have faced along the way. As a background, I'm really good at what I do, but I'm not a trained professional. I'm very open and honest with this. I also suffer from nerve damage in my upper back, neck, and left shoulder, plus frequently get RSI, which is repetitive strain injury. So small, tiny text in print style font can be difficult to accomplish, something I'm also very honest about with clients. If you want print style text, it will not be 100% perfect and it will look like it has been painted, not printed. Anyway, a few years ago, I was commissioned by a coworker to paint 2 large signs for their daughter's wedding. She wanted print-only text, and I explained how it would not be 100% perfect, but she said she was fine with it, that it gave it more of the handmade feel. About 35 hours later and a lot of physical pain, the signs are completed. She's happy with them, gushing over them when I delivered them in person. The signs were completed, delivered, and paid for, $200, including canvases and paint, I'm assuming is what it took to create these, with 2 months left until the wedding. The big day comes and goes. I see photos from my coworker. The signs look beautiful, and as did the whole day. About 6 weeks after the wedding, I get a message from the new bride. She's stating that she noticed imperfections in the signs, that some of the letters were slightly uneven or bigger than others. She agreed it wasn't too noticeable, but apparently others had commented on this and told her about it. She was requesting a partial refund of $100 from me. So I explained that to give her a refund meant that I'd only be paid $30 for my work. $30 for 35 hours of work and physical pain. She had 2 months to tell me she was unhappy, but she didn't. That she herself loved the signs. I also reminded her of our earlier communication. Because of the style of the font she chose, it would not be perfect, and she was well aware of this. I also denied her the refund. She ended up blocking me, and I thought that was it until a few days later when I received a notification from my bank that she had requested a chargeback. This was easily disputed with my screenshots from our conversation and photos of the actual signs. Her chargeback was denied. That coworker stopped speaking to me at work. Turns out the new bride had requested partial refunds from every single vendor and service received for her wedding. The venue, the catering, the photographer, her hair and makeup artist, and the list goes on. She had chosen to leave her job and become a full-time dog breeder, and it didn't work out. The majority of her wedding was paid for by her credit card. Now she was in debt, fighting with her new husband over her excessive spending. Apparently, he had given her full reign to do whatever she wanted as long as she did not pester him with organizing any of the wedding. To go into debt over one day is ridiculous in itself, but to try to scam small businesses and other people doing you favors is another.
If I think about $30 for 35 hours of work, the kids in third world countries making our clothes probably make more than that. And also, even if you I love in Nikki's eyes right now, I think she's thinking we should cut that from the pod.
Also thinking that's not true. $30? Them kids ain't making shit.
No, $1 an hour. If she worked 35 hours and she only made $30,
them kids
that would be
$1. Them kids
That's
making
fair.
Them kids making nothing.
They're not even at 3 figures. Wait, 6 figures is 1, 2, 3. So they're not even at 1 figure.
I'm not doing math, but
so
anyway.
But even if she, let's say, made the amount of money that she was supposed to make with this, what the fuck? $130 for the work that you're doing just is insane. And we talked about this on the podcast before when the ones that we're not going to post, and just a thread that one of my favorites had posted that weddings are just so crazy expensive and people don't want to pay for other people to do work. And this was a very, not eye-opening, but to me it's well articulated. So yes, what about the very concept of weddings wouldn't be expensive? You're housing 150 people at a location that costs millions and has to be maintained standby staff, insurance, grounds, upkeep, etc. Feeding and giving alcohol to 150 people, hiring talented designers to make the space beautiful, hiring specialized artists to document the event, paying professionals to look your absolute best, wearing the nicest clothes you'll ever wear. Weddings are inherently a luxury. Getting married is not a luxury. You can do that wherever. But weddings, yes. If you have a big old wedding, they might come with a cost. So for this lady to do this for $130 was already a steal.
A huge steal.
And now you're trying to do a chargeback?
Yeah, I think, first of all, in this story, one thing that I do want to note and say is, like, I'm glad that the story submitter had gone through all of the facts of, like, yes, I have pain and all of this stuff. So, like, I get it. But at the end of the day, like, first of all, this woman is saying she's not a professional, quote unquote professional. Yes. So she's probably not charging like professional pricing. So like that to begin with is already saying a lot. Then she's going on to say like, hey, I'm essentially doing this as a favor because I have all of this pain and shit, which at the end of the day is not the person who's hiring you's problem. Yeah. Right. But
like if you're willingly doing this.
Yeah. But if you're doing it as a favor and you're charging close to fucking nothing already, you're doing it as a favor, and then this bitch want to come back and after you hand delivered the signs and she said, I love them, they're beautiful, and gushed over them. Yeah. And then 6 weeks after her wedding, which she delivered these signs 2 months before the wedding. Yeah. The signs were delivered 2 months ahead of time. So she had 2 months to say, hey, I'm looking a little bit closer, don't like it, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. No. So essentially what this woman is saying is true. This person is a scam artist, and is looking to, you know, oh, your dog breeding business didn't work out. Wonder the fuck why. Because there's shelter animals pouring out of every pore on my face, and that's a lot. So like,
sorry, not all of us have $3,000 for a poodle.
Even if I did.
I will have a golden doodle at my house for a couple weeks. By the way, I'm nervous because their eyes freak me out depending on the golden doodle.
A lot of them have human eyes. Yeah.
My brother has a golden doodle, and they're moving from Georgia to Washington, like Washington State. And he was like, can I drop the dog off with you for a couple of weeks while we sell the house? So we're not having to like crate her all the time, whatever. And I was like, yeah, okay. I love
doodles.
Dogs,
do have human eyes. I will say one of my best friends has 2 doodles. They're brothers. They're half brothers, actually, which is really funny. But one of them has people eyes, and
so scary.
He be looking at you. But I do love him. He's like a little skinwalker. He's like a person in there.
Creepy.
That's what I say about Baxter. I'm like, Baxter is a human. Like that dog to me ain't no dog. Yeah. That's my man.
I actually told Adam, I was like, what if I took one of the dogs with me on the trip to lighten the load?
You should.
That's what I said. And he said, that would make me even more scared. Why? I think he either assumes that we'd both be murdered, or that like the dog would run away, or like, you know, jump out of the car.
You should bring one dog. I'll bring Baxter. I would do the road trip with you if I had Baxter with me.
Honestly, I bet Baxter and Aiden, or Baxter and Wish, they'd both get along. They'd just be laying in the back seat.
Yeah, Baxter gets sick of other dogs. Like he doesn't need like constant attention from another dog. Yeah. Ruby like will love another dog and like want to be by it. Baxter doesn't care. He'll meet a dog and be like, cool, sniffed your ass, chased you around for a little bit. I'm good. Where's my mom?
I will say though, even if Baxter came, this road trip is even getting a little out of hand for me.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. Just the thought of it. Just the thought of it. Like just bringing my boy, my boy.
But I thought, I was like, oh, just like the windows down on the coast with my dog.
It's like the thought of it.
Yeah. But I just threw it on Road Trippers. We'll get back to the story, but Road Trippers is the place or the app website I always use to say like, okay, here's where I'm at, here's where I'm going, and it'll show you like all the shit around
I saw your path. Thing.
And it's super cool. And then it tells you like what the cost is, all that stuff. And it got up to about 85 hours worth of driving. But I'm like, but I want to see all the things. I want to go to Yosemite. I want to go to all these places. Anyways, back to the story. Know that if you are a person who got married and now you're going back to your vendors to get money back, we're talking to each other. I just need to call that out. your photographer or your videographer doesn't just think you are unhappy with their service and you're asking for a percentage back. They've talked to your other vendors to see if you're also doing this to them. Yeah. And that is something that we see a lot is people have that, what is it when you spend
buyer's
money?
Remorse.
Buyer's remorse after your wedding, and they start going back to all of the vendors with little complaints here and there, trying to get a percentage back on everything. That is fraud. Like, that is fucking fraud. And know that eventually someone's going to figure that out. So unless I did something wrong or something really went amiss, I will fight to the death about a refund, because I'm just like, everyone can want money back on anything.
Yeah.
I could look at you wrong, not knowing, and you want money back. It's one of those things where I go, look, there's a contract. If what was delivered was what was in the contract, like, what are we
are we following the contract or are we not? And again, this person who is saying all of this is
probably
not a professional and does not have a contract necessarily that we know of that was set in place. But one thing that I will say is that this person did things the right way and went to their bank after the client tried to do a chargeback and said, hey, how about the fuck not?
Yeah.
I have proof and screenshots and all of this shit, when they easily could have just been like, oh my gosh, oh, like, I feel like a lot of people like go into panic mode when stuff like that happens. And vendors is what I'm talking about, is like you panic and you're like, oh my God, did I do something wrong? Like, do I need to give this money back? Do I blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, you have to remind yourself, like, hey, let me look at my contract. Let me look at what we agreed upon. Yeah. Did I do something wrong? And if you did do something wrong, you take ownership 100%. And you send, a small percentage back that covers the amount of damages done. However, if you didn't do anything wrong, do not be afraid to take a stand for yourself and to really take ownership over yourself and your business and say, I am not allowing somebody to bully me into thinking that just because they are, whether it's suing me or asking for money back, that if I didn't do anything wrong, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
In what world?
And I think people assume as small business owners that you're so scared of bad press, or you're so scared of quote unquote being sued, or whatever the case may be, that they can bully you into giving money back. Yeah. So you'll avoid those things.
No, baby, talk about me.
Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, talk about me. Like, it is what it is. Come at me. I can hire a lawyer too. Like, it's a free country. And keep in mind, vendors, that if someone comes after you and they lose because clearly they're in the wrong and you've spent money on lawyers' fees and all that stuff,
you can
countersue them.
Countersue them
for the funds. Maybe some emotional distress.
Yeah.
I'm distressed every day. I would love to be compensated for it. I have something to play you. Hold on.
I live in a state of distress.
Oh. Are you... Oh, my leg.
My leg. We go by. That is the craziest.
I'm not even gonna
when that chip came out, it was the funniest video of like, okay, now do a Jamaican accent. Oh, and my leg. Like, that is the funniest thing. It's like, why did
That's
she
what
do
I was afraid of when you were like, can you do a Scottish accent? Or I was like, I am not becoming a video that, is laughed at forever.
That's so funny.
Anyways, so, if we could get an update on this, I would love a picture of this piece that she completed, or of these signs. That would be lovely. Or just, have you gone to blows with this lady since then?
Yeah.
Let us know. Okay, so these are not necessarily stories, more like hot takes or just questions from our vendor buddies. So, number 1, thoughts on vendors adding a clause to their contract stating they cannot hire another type of vendor. Not asking the legality side of it, as I know that's a whole other thing, but more so the thought behind it. Example, a photographer who offers Super 8 adding a clause to their contract that the couple cannot hire a content creator or a videographer, since video is something that they offer now. You take it first.
Okay, I'm struggling with this because we talked about it before, and I feel like we had such a good conversation on this that I'm like, fuck, what did I say?
I know.
But, okay, so... example, photographer offers Super 8. This is a little different, I feel like, than we kind of talked about before, because a photographer offering Super 8 is not the same as like a cinematic videographer creating a video, or as a content creator creating, content.
Yeah.
So I think that's fucking dumb.
Yeah, the mediums, it gets so hairy. And I actually...
It's really cloudy. There's like this big gray area that I just like, it's hard to understand unless it's all laid out in bullet points. I feel like it's like...
Yeah, because you can sit there and go, well, photographers can say that they're the sole photographer of the day. You cannot have another photographer there. So to me, that would mean like, no, you can't bring a different photographer that's only for film photography, even if I don't offer film. Like, in my opinion, I mean, you probably could, but like, let's say that's just the logic of it is, as a photographer, no, you cannot have another photographer. So then does that mean that the content creator also can't take photos with their iPhone? Does that mean that the videographer also can't take stills or pull stills from their video? Things like that. Then you have videographers and it goes, well, I'm the only videographer, so are they not allowed to, but is it reasonable for them to say, well, no, you can't have Super 8 at the wedding if I'm not shooting it, like if the photographer offers it, or no, you can't have content creation because it's another type of video, or no, like it is all really, like you said, cloudy. And the conversation I had with a videographer about this is I feel like it comes down to the vendors.
Yeah.
And just talking about it.
Yeah, and having good, clear communication and building good relationships off of these conversations.
Yeah. So like as a photographer, if I offered Super 8, would I love if you hired a random person or, you know, a different vendor to shoot it? No, but in the same breath, this is a conversation that we had. I've tried to do photo and pieces of video during the day. It is not fucking easy. I almost would rather you have someone else do
100%,
it. So it is
too.
Not something on my shoulders. And I start to feel like when we really nitpick, well, who can do this and who can do this at a wedding? The only thing I actually care about is too many cooks in the kitchen. There's so many fucking people with a lens pointed at the couple. But what I do believe it comes down to is the money. You're spending money on them doing Super 8 instead of me doing Super 8, and they want to make as much money as possible and be as lucrative, or it's about their name on things. So like, well, I don't want anybody else to have a tag on Instagram for this wedding. I only want it to be me. And I don't know. It gets to the point where I go, yes, Instagram is a huge place where I get my bookings from. So yes, it's important that I'm tagged in something as the photographer, but like, it's not make or break life, you know?
And I think like to go along with your point, like I've also done weddings. Sorry guys, wiping my nose. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm like, sometimes I forget that I'm on here.
It was the most delicate wipe though. I don't do a cute wipe like that.
It was a gentle one. But I have done weddings where, you know, there has been like a content creation add-on from my point, and I'm not shooting like a cinematic format video or anything like a videographer who would be hired would be doing. And I mostly did it out of like a creative desire from my standpoint, and the couple was like, this is actually exactly what we want. Like, we really don't want a huge videographer. We're having a backyard wedding, whatever. So what I ended up doing is I actually hired a second photographer, an assistant, a photo assistant for the day, who would be in charge of taking my DSLR camera around and shooting vertical video. And so that I could focus on photo, because that is still my job, is to focus on photo. So when I see photographers adding on like content creation or video, I'm like, damn dog, good for you, but like couldn't be me, because I really do value just focusing on the photo aspect of it, because that's what I'm hired to be there for. The content add-on creation from like what I did that one time ever was pretty stressful. And I'm not gonna lie, like we had a VHS video, and I've seen people say the same thing about Super 8. Like, you're taking video and then you go back to read it later on and it didn't fucking work. And I had that happen with a VHS video for the day. Luckily, I had my assistant on, you know, my DSLR all day, just shooting video, which was great. And I was able to create awesome videos from that. But it's not the same as a videographer. It's not the same as like what a content creator who has their entire day is to focus on that medium to create that exact content. It's not the same as me like strapping my phone to the top of my camera and being like, okay, cool.
It's
so
not. And
it's not.
Here's exactly why. If you're watching on Spotify or YouTube, so literally this is sitting on top of my camera. The moment I go vertical, the camera's going like this. And that's it's like back and forth, back and forth. You're hearing click, 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 click in the sound. And I just sit there and I go, it's not the same as an actual content creator. And I fully understand, like, if the couple's on a budget and they really want something, but they don't want, like, I do get that, but I also then need us to be realistic that you cannot compare. It's much like a photographer who shoots a full 10-hour wedding day for $3,500 versus $10,000. There is going to be a difference. And
there's some discrepancies.
And that's okay, but it needs to be understood. And so I, as a photographer who tries to do everything, and when I realize that something's not going to work, I go, okay, I'm going to fucking do that again. But I always love to try. I have tried the video and photo at the same time. I've tried the content creation and whatever at the same time. And it's just, photography is already a big enough responsibility, one that we take very seriously. And like I said, it's like, I just want to focus on that.
Yeah, and what I was primarily hired for. And also, I think it is ludicrous to say, like, oh, just because I shoot Super 8 means that you can't have a videographer there shooting Super 8. Well, you might shoot Super 8 differently.
Yeah.
Like, what if you like the way that this videographer shoots their Super 8s?
Not only shoots, but like how they edit it and they do like a compilation and things like that.
The whole thing could be completely different from that standpoint. But to kind of go off of that point, something that we had talked about, in the episodes that didn't air was a point that was brought up of like, well, what if you are a photographer who only shoots digital and you don't shoot film, and the couple says, hey, I found this photographer who shoots film, like, I would like to hire them to shoot film for the day. Like,
here's what I'll say, because I've sat on this a little since we spoke about it. At the end of the day, I want my couple to be happy.
Yep.
I think that as long as there's a conversation as a vendor team ahead of the wedding that says, look, we're all here to make sure the couple has the best fucking gallery ever or the best experience, the best day. Here's the tag list that we will be using for these photographs, right? And it can say photographer, Meg, right? And then film photographer, whomever. Have that, or whatever. I don't care about the order, but have something there. Where it gets sticky is like, let's say if Uncle Bob posts a film photo and says I'm the photographer, or posts one of my photos and says it's the other photographer. Yeah. At the end of the day, though,
it is what it is.
Okay. And I've thought about that a lot in the last couple of weeks, because I'm like, okay, who's looking at Uncle Bob's photo going like, who's this photographer? I need to hire them. It's very unlikely. And as someone who gets a lot of their inquiries,
not with Uncle Bob's photo, but with bridesmaid Kelly's photo, that happens a lot.
So I think it's just, it could be one of those things where when you submit the final gallery to the couple, put in the bottom of the email, like, here's the tag list to ensure all of these vendors get credit or something. But if something gets missed, I don't know.
It's not the end of the world. At the end of the day, you're getting paid. You're working. You're doing your job. And if you're doing it well, then that should be enough for you.
Yeah.
And then the one thing that I was going to say to piggyback off of that is, like, these are conversations that you should be having at the time of a consultation call, of a discovery call. You're telling the couple, hey, I don't shoot film. If you're looking for that, like, potentially I could find a second photographer or hire somebody, you know, and I can then take the photo, the scans, and then, develop them and I can submit them to your gallery, and that way everything's together. So there are ways to go about it. Again, it all comes down to communication, and it all comes back to really just having those clear, honest conversations with couples. Like, I literally just had a couple who was inquiring with me. We had a great call. They went onto my Instagram and they were like, oh my gosh, we realized you shot a wedding in film. And I was just very honest with them. And I said, hey, while I do shoot film for personal stuff and have shot it for personal stuff like travel and whatever, I've only shot one wedding fully, splitting digital and film. And I would be happy to provide that service for you. Here's the cost of what it would be, but I'm being very transparent and telling you these things ahead of time so that you're not booking me based on that and that alone. Yeah. Because that would be so dishonest and just dumb.
Agreed. And I think that there are a lot of photographers right now who are offering film, and it's, it's something where I go, how many roles have you really gotten back that you feel hella confident in? Like, do you feel very confident that you are not going to have a hard conversation with the couple because the film did not come out?
And also, my wedding that I shot on film was in Mexico. So mind you, it was stunning. Yeah. It was beautiful weather. It was we were outside pretty much the whole time. So the photos are going to come back for me with 10 rolls of film or however many it was. Pretty consistent, pretty similar. So like
lots of light to work with.
Totally different from that than let's say like shooting at the Basilica or like shooting somewhere that's like really dark in the, basement at Bavaria Downs where the guys get ready. Like, it's going to be completely different. And those are also conversations that need to be had too. So
agreed.
Anyway.
Know where you're going to be shooting, be prepared, or have those conversations ahead of time. Like if you know you're shooting at a church and you do some research, you can talk to the couple about like the lack of light and how the photographs may look. They're still going to be stunning, but it makes a difference. Yeah, you have to be reasonable with those conversations. Okay, last little one, and we don't have to talk as in depth about this as we have in the past. But...
I'm not going to, because I reread it and I was like, what? I'm so fucking sick of this story. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I'm so sick of talking about this motherfucking thing.
To the person who submitted this, we really appreciate
no offense.
it.
Like literally, we've had 2 super in-depth conversations, and we will give you some good insight on our thoughts and everything. Yeah, but. My take now is just like, okay.
Yeah. So this submission was, this is a reminder that when you see best of polls and features in wedding publications, the publications 99% of the time are selecting their paying advertisers as finalists and winners. Follow the money, friends. I wish more vendors and general public booking couples knew this. So, and we talked about this before, that it's not that I don't care about vendors, but I care less about how this impacts vendors than I do about how it impacts couples.
For sure. 100%.
You have couples who are on Instagram and they see all these people like, oh, top 10 photographers, in this state. And, this person won XYZ. And I just sit there and I go, what
does that mean?
What does that mean? Who voted on that? What were the stipulations? Are you sure they're actually enjoyable to work with, or do they just have some pretty photos? Do they just, did they shoot a couple luxury weddings and now they're notated as like the top photographer in California? And I worry for couples. And we talked about this before, that I saw one of the like top 10 in this state, or even in this country. It was something like that, maybe the UK.
But what you're talking about is on Instagram. So there is a difference. I do want to clarify, because this is kind of where it got confusing for me before, is that there are publications, i.e. magazines like Minnesota Bride and stuff, who have awards with voting from the general public and wedding vendor specific for wedding vendors. Best of in the state of Minnesota, or like, Wisconsin Bride does the same, or Nebraska Bride. Like there are specific publications that do that. And then what you're talking about, describe what you're talking about.
Yeah. So what I'm talking about, and what bugs me probably more than publications, is the online shit, because these online accounts who have 200,000 followers have never met this photographer. They've never actually worked with them. I don't think there was a voting system. I purely think it was like, this photographer shot some luxury weddings and now they're a top photographer. So the post I'm referencing is, I think it was like top photographers in the UK, and a bride or a previous bride had commented and said, kind of like, how'd they get this? Like, how did we get here? Because this photographer shot my wedding and was downright horrible.
Yeah, it was
horrible to my guests, horrible to my family. Like, what are the stipulations to even be entered in this, let alone win? And so those make me really nervous. And again, for vendors out there, I think it's a little less harmful. It is harmful in terms of like, you feel maybe like you're not good enough. Oh my gosh, like I'm not getting nominated for these. I'm not winning these. Baby girl, they're paying for these wins. Yeah. They're paying for these, but also who voted on this and all that stuff. So from a vendor perspective, do you work on your craft, be as like great as you can to your clients? That's where that starts, is make sure you have an awesome client experience. And then work on your art. But for couples, I'm always like, do your research. Don't give a shit about these awards. Yeah. Don't give a shit if it says someone was published in XYZ. Like if it was just a photo instead of like a full spread or a full wedding, they probably paid for that. That is a paid advertisement. It is not that they were published because their work is so phenomenal. So
that's like the Vogue stuff that we've talked about, is that a lot of times with Vogue, when you see a photographer saying like published in Vogue or featured in Vogue, a lot of the times with Vogue stuff or different magazines, you are submitting for publication. So you are choosing photos to submit to UK Vogue or, you know, whatever, bridal Vogue magazines. And in the back of the magazine, they have essentially what kind of looks like ad space, in my opinion. It's not like you are shooting for Vogue and being a featured Vogue photographer because you were chosen to shoot a spread for Vogue. You are featured in Vogue via a spot where you submitted and potentially even paid for. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think that what is wrong is when you're trying to dupe people into believing that you were something that it's not. So like I would rather not, essentially, because I don't want to go through the hassle of feeling like I'm like putting out there, featured in Vogue, when essentially I was submitting for my photos to be featured, which is great, especially if they were featured. But if you're paying for it, I don't know how I feel about that. And to feel like my couples are now like, oh my God, we have a Vogue photographer.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, they paid for an advertisement in Vogue. Yeah, and again, that's the thing, is where I think about the couples out there and I go, well, it's you know, they feel a sense of security when they see things like that, and I go, you have no idea if this photographer is even going to show up to your wedding day or if they're going to send an associate. You don't know, like anything could happen.
Do not base your decisions off of that. And to go back to the not Minnesota, but like the publication specific voting polling system, I think it is a little different. But again, essentially at the end of the day, these are badges of honor. They're very nice. And it is great to receive that recognition, and especially when it comes from your peers and from people who have worked with you. And I love that. I think that's really wonderful. And so I do think that like the way that Minnesota Bride does it, I can see how that is seen as like doing it the right way, because you're having, you know, the general public being able to vote. So like former clients who can vote for you, but you also,
Okay, I did not know. When I went to go do some of like the best of for Minnesota, it asked like, what is your business?
It is now. So it's 2 tiers. So you start with the general public. So like anybody can vote, anybody can submit a vote. So what you should do is send it to all of your past clients and ask them to vote for you or submit you, but it's a write-in. So you have to write in people's names, and then based on how many people are written in, then you can narrow it down and say, okay, now vendors who have worked with these individuals, please go through and select based off the list. Like, let's say you've worked with, out of the 3 photographers, you've worked with one of them consistently, you know how great they are, then you can go ahead and vote for that person.
Makes sense.
The thing that I don't love is that there are many different categories for photographers within these things.
Yeah.
And it's like best this photographer, best that photographer, best this photographer. I wouldn't even know that half these people are those types of photographers. So I'm like, how did they get into this category?
Yeah.
And how are we deciphering if they are the best or not? Because I don't know. I never knew that they even did, you know, that. But
also, as someone in the industry, in this market, very often the people who are up for these awards are not necessarily who I think are the pioneers of our market, industry, or like or the photographers that I would say are,
like you look up to and like really,
and everybody's different, right? Art is so subjective, but I'm like, there are photographers in our market that I look up to so heavily. And it's not just like, oh, their work is phenomenal. It is, but they also have the following, and unfortunately things like that do matter. Like all of these different things. They're a great person. They're so incredibly creative. And I go, I've never seen them nominated. I've never seen, like, what is it really taking to be nominated? Yes, you might have to submit. You might have to pay. You might, like, I don't know. At the end of the day, like you said, it's a badge of honor. It's cool. But there are plenty of vendors, take photographers out of it. There are plenty of vendors in there where I go, their work has not changed in 10 years. I never see them like actually published, but somehow they're up for best of. And I go, was that a dollar amount? Was that like, what is happening? And I sit there and I go, well, how much work are they really getting from this? Are couples really looking at this? They might be, and going, well, this person's won this award year after year. And I go, that doesn't mean a lot.
Again, it is a badge of honor, and I don't want to discount that because it does feel really good, and I do think that it is a great accomplishment to receive these recognitions. I think that it feels really good, and I don't want to discredit anybody else feeling that way ever. However, I think it is important to note that it does not define your business, how successful you are, how much money you make, and how good you are at your job. It really doesn't. Just because something says best of or you are the best at this, it doesn't mean that you are. And I think that is what needs to be clarified, is that while it is a very honorable thing, it does not define who is actually the best at what, because at the end of the day, art is very subjective. People do things differently. They have different systems set in place. And at the end of the day, like, if you're making your clients happy, that's all that matters.
That's literally all that matters. I feel like more happy Google reviews are better than any badge of honor.
Yep.
Tell me, I want to hear my couples. Are they happy? That's all that matters at the end of the day.
Agreed.
So, anywho, I like how we were like, we're not going to talk a lot about that.
And then we just went in.
We're very passionate about it. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for joining this cocktail hour. Don't forget to subscribe and review the pod wherever you listen. Really quick, when you just went like this, I have like muscle memory. I almost was like, okay, we do that at the beginning of the episode to sync audio and video. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you follow along with us on social media, especially on Instagram at cocktailhour.podcast. You can submit all of your stories there. We air on Wednesdays with our midweek episodes and every Friday with a full episode. Link is in our bio. Everything is anonymous, and we'd love to hear from you.
Bye.
Bye.
Watch, I pop that in, and it's just the audio.
Nothing.
I might kill myself. And then in my suicide letter, all I'm writing is cocktail hour.
13th reason. Can you even believe 13 Reasons Why was a fucking show? And it was like this whole show about how this girl killed herself.
Yeah, that is pretty nuts. Honestly, I think I'm just going to let the pod thing keep recording and I'll cut it well, no, I'll take 2 other tracks.